G'day everyone, it's Warren here from NQ Explorers. Today it's an industrial ruins tour. We're in Charters Towers on Towers Hill at the site of the massive ruins of the 1880s Pyrites works. Let's have a look around what's left of the old place. Okay, well, we're on Charters Hill, which is basically a small mountain in the middle of Charters Towers. Bit of wind up here today, so hopefully you're not getting knocked around too much there. Anyway, bit of my background on fascination with these kind of industrial ruins. I grew up in Newcastle, New South Wales, on Central Coast New South Wales. Long history in that city of coal mining and heavy industry, principally the BHP Steelworks, of course, which is no longer there, but old coal mines from the first coal was actually exported from Newcastle in 1797, so it's a very old city for Australian standards. So when I was younger, my grandfather and my father and I used to explore all the old coal mining ruins in the bush around the Newcastle hinterland, because a lot of them were abandoned, by the 60s and 70s, because they'd been worked since the early 1800s actually. But what fascinated me is stuff like this brickwork in the middle of nowhere basically, and you've got this beautiful Cornish arches and pump houses that are overly elaborate in a coal mine that would predictably have an expendable life. You wouldn't expect it to be so permanent, but they beautiful brickwork and the amount of pride they took in their workmanship back in that time for what was probably going to be a short-lived industrial project, such as this. This is the massive Pyrites works on Towers Hill. It's on the eastern face of the hill. It's a giant gravity mill. This was built in the 1880s for gold, chlorinating gold out of complex sulfide ores that were found below the water table in Charters Towers. Now, the early stuff that they dug in the 1870s, when the gold was discovered here on Towers Hill, was just simply crushed by gravity stamps and amalgam tables, and the gold was just taken out from the mercury amalgam. Once you got below the water table, they had very complex pyrites and sulfide ores, and gold extraction was a very technical process. Now, of course, at this stage in the 1800s, mining technology and industrial technology in general was advancing at extremely rapid rate. So in the 1880s, chlorination was the way to get the gold out of these complex ores. So this is a big feed bin up the top. What happened then, the ore travelled down this hillside for 300 feet to the base over in a reverberatory furnace. So it was roasted in this furnace, and it took several hours to get to the bottom, slowly being shaken down through the furnace, out the bottom, where it was processed to get the gold out of the ores, which had been oxygenated off. Now, I'll put a link at the bottom with the chemical explanation for all this. I'm no chemist or geologist, but that's how they roasted the ores to get the gold-bearing ores, and they reprocessed a lot of the old tailings heaps from the 1870s, which still had a lot of gold in them, through this chlorination plant. There was a huge chimney nearly 180 feet tall on top of the hill, which dominated the landscape throughout Charters Towers for many, many years, until 1942, when the United States Army Air Force destroyed it because they regarded it as a navigation hazard for the World War II bomber strips just to the north. So I'll take you up, we'll have a look at the chimney ruins. This is the feed bin for the ore. It's late in the evening now, and the light's not perfect because I'm looking east. I'll come back early in the morning and we'll look at the ruins on the lower side of the hill, because it's a bit treacherous down here. If I tried to get in there now, this video would end very suddenly. Enough chatting, let's go and have a look at what is left of the old Pyrites works. This is all heritage listed, of course, so there's not much left of it. It's pretty ruined, but there's some really interesting backstories to this. We'll have a look at the ruins and have a look at some of the history to the site that was established in the 1870s and 1880s. Just looking at some of the stonework, beautifully laid there, or the wing walls on the brick ore bins at the top of the hill. This is where the ore was fed in, up the top of the hill, through this gravity mill, and roasted and processed right to the bottom, which took 3 hours for the ore to descend the 300 feet to the bottom. Now, I'm using the old figures, I'm not using metres, because there were no metres in 1880 when this was built. It was built to imperial standards. Now, as you can see, this is the top of the hill, and that's Charters Towers main street and city in there. It's looking to the north. Okay, afternoon light's not perfect. This is one of the feed hoppers, as you can see. Sloped brick face on the western wall, and this is where the ore was dumped to begin its descent down the hill. I don't understand the function of that angled brickwork, but I'd say that there was more than one bin, and that perhaps joined it to the next bin. What you can see further down the hill there is some of the one of the cyaniding vats that were added to the plant in the early 1900s when it was converted from chlorination to cyaniding. So that doesn't date from the earliest part of this big mill. But tomorrow morning we'll go down and have a look at the bottom of the hill. Tonight, before sunset, we'll stay up on the top here and have a look at the ruins on the top of the hill. Here's a better shot higher up. You can see there's machinery foundations here for winding machinery, depositing the ore into the bins down the slope. I'm higher up the hill now near the chimney. Obviously a flue come up the side of the hill to the chimney from the main works at the bottom of the hill. You can see the bit of an arch there for the this is the base of the chimney flue here. If I turn around, you can see the ruins of the chimney. Light's not ideal, I'm facing the wrong direction. That's the chimney foundation down there, and this is the ruins of the chimney that was blown up in 1942 by the US Air Force. The chimney was 180 feet tall, and in their defence, yes, it was the highest point for many, many miles, and just out that there was a big bomber strip, and so any aircraft approaching over the town into the strip at night, well, it definitely was a navigation hazard. Of course, don't forget it would be all blacked out in World War II. There was, especially in North Queensland, but even all down the east coast of Australia, blackouts were enforced every evening for fear of Japanese air raids, even this far inland. Well, it's a beautiful spot to explore around in the late afternoon. I'm right on the top of the chimney ruins now. You can see the ore bin down there and the archway that was part of the feed system. The early gravity stamp system that was used in the 1870s to extract gold from the rock up here was fairly inefficient, so around 50% of the gold went out in the tailings, and all those tailings were reprocessed through this plant when it was built in the 1880s using chlorine gas to extract the gold from the tailings. So this was a very wealthy plant, made a great deal of money for this town. Charters Towers was known as the world when it was in its heyday, because you had everything in the world you needed in one town. There's even an old stock exchange here that operated during that time. This is a close-up of one of the later cyaniding vats, made of concrete, as you can see, and not brick. That was built in the early 1900s, around 1904, 1905, when the chlorination stopped and the cyaniding began, because cyaniding was a much simpler process than using chlorine gas. Righto, it's early the next morning. I'm at the base of the old gravity mill, the Pyrites works. This is the base of the furnace structure. Up there you can see the feed bin where I was last night, and down here we've got some machinery foundations, and over to the left some beautiful stone and brickwork, and up there's a brick vat, which was probably a chlorine or cyanide vat. But let's just have a look around these ruins here. at the base and see what we can see that's might be of interest. As you can see, there's all sorts of old foundations all down the hill. So this is the gravity mill. You can see there's a set of stone stairs way up there. Probably not visible on the video, but it's definitely there. Coming down from that feed hopper. The stairs ran down the side of the huge 300-foot reverberating furnace. So this was one huge furnace that went the length of that slope, and it took 3 hours for the ore to descend and to be roasted in that furnace and processed until it came out down here on the bottom. Well, you can only imagine the horrific conditions that these men worked in the 1870s and 1880s in this mill. I mean, it was a toxic place from a chemical point of view, but just the dangerous machinery, and of course there was no safety standards of any sort. You can imagine the horrible deaths and injuries that took place here, and of course the breathing toxic gases constantly. Testament to those men that came out here and mined that gold and processed it in these plants in the outback here, which is, it gets very hot in Charters Towers. Of course, it's above the Tropic of Capricorn. In the summer, it's blistering hot. Would you imagine working a reverberation mill, massive furnace at the bottom, big chimney up the top, and all this gold ore coming down through the furnace for 3 hours, all while we're belching toxic smoke and fumes. But anyway, there's an interesting little epitaph here in the concrete. I don't know how old it is or what happened, but it kind of illustrates what I just was talking about then. Let's have a look at this. As you can see, this is very old concreting, and it's got RIP. It's not a grave or anything. I'm inside the mill foundation, but obviously something happened here that wasn't very good. Perhaps someone died on this spot, smelting gold ore in the 1880s. Of course, mining and industrial technology was moving at such a rate in the late 1800s. This mill was built in the 1880s, but by the mid 1890s it was obsolete because cyaniding had taken over as a more efficient and much easier way of extracting gold from complex ore bodies. Okay, we're a bit higher up the terrace mill foundations now. As you can see, it was a massive complex. All this brick and stonework. Now you'll be wondering why all this glass was here. There's actually a glass processing plant where they melted glass and sand together. For some reason it was part of the plant. I'll detail that in the description, or at least I'll have a link. So they actually processed broken glass as part of the milling process. I'm not sure how that worked. It had something to do with the gold extraction. Look at this beautiful stonework. All the time and effort it took to fit those stones individually and mortar them together. And then it's rounded off on the corners with the brickwork. Yeah, this is definitely that glass processing area. I'll research that and I might voice over what happened with the glass. It was a separate part of the plant, but that's why there's so much broken glass here. It's not like someone's been drinking beer and throwing bottles around the place. Well, she's a big complex. I love these kind of industrial ruins. Just a testament to the mining wealth that made Australia, the modern nation, what it is. Yes, it was 140 years, 150 years ago, but these foundations, these physical foundations, laid the foundations for the modern nation of Australia. Mining's done that. And gold mining early on saved the colonies, really, particularly Queensland, which was basically bankrupt when it left New South Wales in the 1860s until Gympie gold was discovered. Gympie's always been known as the town that saved Queensland. Got an eagle coming to have a look. Look at that. It's beautiful. Saw a couple of eagles up here yesterday looking for prey. I trust them not prey, but anything can happen up here. Look at this stonework. This had to be quarried, broken up, and then all fitted together. Well, of course, there's so much money involved in this gold mining. It was such a wealthy spot, this hill. The amount of money that Charters Towers produced was stupendous. Now, by the 1870s, Queensland was well established because Gympie had done that in the 1860s, but Charters Towers really put Queensland on the economic map. That eagle's just gone up over the top of the hill there above that ruin. Anyway, there's an interesting story about the end of these works and their closure. Let's have a look at that. The mill manager was involved with the design and construction of this mill in the 1880s. He was sent overseas to the UK and other places to look at current ore processing technologies, chlorination in particular, because that was a chlorine mill, and that was incorporated in this design. Now, he had been here right up until the mid-1890s when cyaniding became all the thing, because it was such a simpler process and it was cheaper. Didn't require all this re-roasting and reverberation. So there were cyaniding plants popping up all over the place in Charters Towers, and this basically became obsolete. It had been processing the tailings from the earlier 1870s gravity stamps, but by the late 1890s, 96, 97, 98, cyaniding had taken over as the go-to process for extracting gold. So what happened was the mill, which had been fabulously wealthy, was now losing money, and the board of directors decided to reduce his weekly wage from £8 a week to £6 a week, which was a huge cut, obviously, 25% pay cut. He didn't take this too kindly, so he arranged to meet the board of directors and demanded to see the minutes of the meeting, which where it was voted upon to reduce his wage. The chairman of the board refused to show him the minutes, and he pulled out his revolver and shot the chairman dead. He then attempted to shoot the rest of the board, but his revolver misfired and they escaped. He got the revolver working again, put it to his head, fired, and only injured himself. He didn't kill himself. So he was hauled off to the local coppers. Ended up in Brisbane, tried for murder, and he was hung in Boggo Road Jail. And after that the works were abandoned, and I guess some of it was cannibalised for other mills around the place, the cyaniding mills, but as I said earlier, the chimney was demolished in the 1940s during World War II as an aviation hazard, and basically from the early 1900s the place was derelict. I'll put up some photographs, historical photographs of the site as it looked in the 1890s right through to the 1920s. But it was a sad ending to the mill manager, who obviously he'd been out in the bush too long, I think, when he reacted like that to a pay cut. Mind you, it was quite a pay cut, but shooting the board of directors probably wasn't the best plan. Unfortunately, I can't zoom this GoPro. I probably can, but I don't know how. But the steps coming down from that feed bin, they ran down the side of the giant furnace. Now the furnace was, like I said earlier, 330 feet long and 10 feet wide. Big roasting furnace. So obviously the fires are lit down here, burning the ore, roasting the ore, and then up that acts as a flue. There's some dust extractors at the top and up out that chimney that was up there like that. So the steps came down either side, the stone steps of the actual furnace, where I guess the men checked and worked on the system as the ore was descending down through the reverberatory furnace. Off the side of the furnace you can see we've got melted glass and copper matte, copper ore. You get the copper on that. It's all copper stained. Obviously copper and gold pretty much go hand in hand in these big processing mills. Okay, these are the toxic tailings from the Pyrites mill, from the chlorination process. It's obviously fenced off because it's dangerously toxic. And around the other side there's another larger heap of this pink processed tailings. Anyway, we might wrap it up here. I hope you've enjoyed this little look around the Charters Towers Pyrites Works ruins. As I said earlier, I love these industrial ruins and the hardships these people face, and the pride they took in their workmanship when they constructed these places. Well, thanks for watching. Bye for now.